Well, welcome everybody. I'm calling in virtually from Tennessee, so very far away, but it's great to see all of you, and I'll be chairing the meeting from here. I'm going to start with the virtual reminders, which are including please mute your microphones to help ensure no feedback or background noise that may interfere with the speaker. And if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. Use that function on your computer. Remember to lower your hand once your question has been asked or you have finished speaking. And don't forget to unmute your microphone and then mute your microphone when you're finished. And as a reminder, only audience members are only permitted to speak during the call to the audience unless called upon by the committee. And this meeting is being recorded to satisfy the open meeting laws. Now we'll go ahead and do the roll call vote. The roll call to have everybody here.
All right, Allison.
Here.
Armando.
Presente.
Asia. Asia.
Here.
Thank you. Claire.
Here.
Craig. Eric.
Here.
Matt.
Here.
Rob.
Here.
And Steve.
Here.
Is there anybody I missed?
That makes 9, so
Yep.
Armando, you should be good.
All right.
Awesome,
We'll
thank you.
Great. We'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Claire
Right.
definitely had the coffee. I couldn't keep up with it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a cheat sheet too. All right, so good, we're good with that. That's number B. We'll do the call to the audience, C. Anybody there that would like to speak? No? Hearing none, we're going to move on to the safety share, item D. Any safety shares this morning?
I always have one if somebody else doesn't want to add one in here. All right, I'll just, unfortunate news earlier this week, we had a reportable injury. We had a gentleman working out at Green Valley with an angle grinder, a high-speed cutoff wheel, and it either kicked back or he got his hand in the wrong place and he cut, right near his finger and knuckle with the grinding wheel basically, and had to get, I think, maybe 5 stitches. So I believe that makes our 7th reportable injury for this calendar year, which is quickly coming to a close. The last few years we've had between 10 and 12 reportable injuries, so we're doing better, but still it was unfortunate because we were ready to have 3 months in a row. October would have been our 3rd month without a reportable, 3 consecutive months, which would have been great. But then we had one golf cart, mechanics on golf cart at Tres Rios ran into the back of another one. And I can't remember which individual got hurt, but I think the guy that got rear-ended got hurt. And so that ended up being recordable. And now this cutoff saw was another one. So we're still working on it. But my safety share for this meeting is hand tools. Everybody uses things at home and whatnot. So just use extra caution and make sure you're using it correctly, because we don't have too many hand tool accidents, but that's one I thought it was worth adding as a safety share.
Great. Any other safety shares out there?
I don't have a new one, but I'd like to comment on the one that you brought up last week or last month about the credit card, because we had our credit card compromised, and I found this interesting. So we canceled it, gave us a new card, and then like automatic charges people ran through our old card number went through, and they went through, and then my wife talked to the credit card company, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well we gave them the new number for your new credit card," and I was like, "What?" Like I don't that does, even if you get a new credit card, if you had problems before, this could perpetuate why people are getting hacked, month after month, because the credit card literally gave them our new credit card number. So anyway, I'm
That's
still
really fascinating. I mean, my mom is speaking to this. My mom is on her 4th. This is really hard. So, and we don't know how it's getting hacked. So that's really interesting. Okay. Any other safety shares?
I have
All
one.
right. Oh, yeah.
Beth Scully from Tucson Water. Bell toured race this weekend. Just be careful.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm not there to say this, but we made a mistake last time with our safety shares, and only people on the committee are allowed to have the safety share. But at the call to the audience, you're welcome to bring up anything you want to bring up. Sorry about that. I guess we're going to be unsafe unless you decide to bring it up later. What, Armando, I see that you're on there. You have your raised hand.
Armando?
Armando, did you mean to raise your hand?
Maybe he's waving by.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, well, Armando, last call. Was that a mistake or something?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was muted. My bad. Anyway, this Saturday is Tour de Tucson, and it's going to be done on the southern half of Tucson from Green Valley up to mid Tucson, I believe. And so Saturday, if you're going to be traveling anywhere near those areas, make sure that you either leave really early or have alternate routes. And if not, just be very careful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, unless we have any other safety shares, we'll move on to the next item, which is item E, approval of the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes? Did anybody have any comments on the minutes? Edits? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
I couldn't see who that was. Does somebody?
That was Eric.
Eric, okay.
I'll second.
Allison, second.
Oh, okay.
Steve, second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Or say
Aye.
aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. The minutes are approved. Moving on to the discussion and action item F. We're going to start with Jackson talking about the rate increases.
Yeah, it's not about rate increases. It's the discussions to determine if we need rate increases. But good morning, everyone.
Sorry,
And-
excuse me.
I just did bring this up last month, and I'm just repeating it because we're now into the budget process for next fiscal year. And we are seeing a number of, as we've seen for the last couple of years, significant upward pressures. And I think we're on our 7th year without rate increase, which is phenomenal. But right now, just some general items, we still need to get more, this will be discussion, obviously, with finance, and it's part of the key role of this committee. But just the recent compensation study that has now been implemented effective September 10th and is kind of winding up with some appeal process that are still in, that various employees had opportunities to appeal the outcome, and the county has been going through the appeal process. And with the outcome of the change in compensation protocols and titles and grades. The wastewater department for a full year will be impacted approximately $1.5 million increase in our wages and benefits category. So that's a pretty significant upward increase. Then we also know that the interest rates, I think I recall from last month's discussion that interest rates may be getting close to 6%. And I think we were down around 2 or something for a long time. We had some pretty incredibly low rates. So that's going to be I don't know, I haven't quantified that amount, but finance most definitely will be able to when the time comes. I heard different discussions on electrical rate increases from TEP that could be as much as $1 million. That sounds a bit high to me, but I haven't seen all the information, but that'll be an important discussion. I talked about it last time. We're having to buy some Motorola radios. We bought some a number of years ago, and they're good radios, but they don't support the intrinsically safe battery system for those radios anymore. And because of our confined space entries and the nature of our utilities business, we have to have intrinsically safe radios for a number of our applications. And so we're buying some this year, unbudgeted, we're buying some this year, and actually getting some funding out of the contingency, county contingency fund to be able to do that. But next year, we're going to have to budget for some additional radios that we normally wouldn't have had to get, but we have to go with the newer radio to get supported intrinsically safe batteries. So there's still some conversation going about that, and probably we'll have some Motorola discussion. But I'm just, I'm not to get into the details on some of those, but I just wanted to remind you of some of the, what I consider fair, significant increases. And that's not that's not mentioning just general inflation, which is still running higher than traditional, that 2%. I think it's over 3, almost 4% right now. So not sure how that will roll out to our contracts or, supplies and services, but more than likely that we'll continue to see those increases as well. So I just want to get this committee back focused on how you want to proceed in learning about, as we're going through preparing budget activities, and of course, finance is on the agenda as they usually are. And, they can add their 2 cents of how they would like to go about it as well. But I just think you need to give yourself ample time and agenda topics to discuss, these challenges and what they could or may point to in regards to a user fee increase. I can't say they will or won't, but it's pointing in that direction. And I just want to make sure you're all aware and give you time to have your discussions and meetings and how you use the subcommittees versus the full committee, all that stuff. And that's really all I wanted to talk about on my talk. So if you have any questions for me, let me know. Otherwise, it was just informational for you as you prepare the coming month's agenda. Eric? You're muted,
Go
Eric.
ahead, Eric.
Still muted, Eric.
Go.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I have my hand up, but I couldn't get to the unmute button. A couple of questions. One is, are we as an operation also have to maintain a 1.2 ratio with our loan to our operation payments?
The debt service ratio of 1.2 is what this committee has. There's kind of some requirements as well in our financial arena, but this committee said, yeah, let's make sure our debt service ratio stays above 1.2 so that we're solvent, or so that we're in a good shape in our financial rating that we get. So I'll defer to finance if they want to chime in more on that, but yeah, we need to make sure our debt service ratio, which is 1.2 is the target that we want to meet.
So I would assume, maybe that's dangerous, but I would assume then that the operational costs pressures that are being put on the division are going to play an important part in maintaining that 1.2 debt ratio. And I obviously I do that with the water district, but I'm looking at it from this point. Second question, or at least a point, is, are there operational grants that are available to help, say, with the radios or some of the others? I've noted that we've gotten a $500,000 grant to help with the cleanup over at Roger Road. But I wonder if there's some other avenues that we can look at to help with purchasing batteries or radios for the crews in the field as a safety issue.
We always look if there's grants that we think we could qualify for or have a chance to get. And, you know, one interesting example on grants is we were approved for the Army Corps of Engineers. We put in a $3 million request for backup generators at our Tres Rios facility. And we actually were awarded that grant, and it was a 75%, and we matched 25. So we have to come up, they're going to give us $2.25 million, and we have to pay the difference. And that's great. And this has been going on for quite some time, but the state, this is a strange issue, and I may not articulate it exactly correct, but in a nutshell, the state is requiring certain language in the contract with the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Army Corps of Engineers saying, nope, they're not changing their canned contractual language for the grant. So we're struggling to get the grant. And it's not just us. There's other Army Corps of Engineer grants at different communities around Arizona. And many of them are going to waive the state language or say they've tried, but hey, give us the money. But the county hasn't got to that point, and it's having discussion. So I didn't mean to deviate, but we do apply for grants, but even ones that we thought we had, we still haven't seen any check in our hand or any green stuff in our hand. And so we looked at one grant. We were going to apply for radios for this year, but we were told to stand down because of the type of grant and who it was really targeted for. They didn't want us taking money from private communities or communities in the town here. So we continue to look, though, Eric.
Thank you.
Claire?
So I had a question about timeline. So so we're going to look at our work plan right now. So we probably need to put some items in here to make sure that we are moving along with our evaluation for the finances. The budget goes in January, the preliminary budget for wastewater. Is it at that time that you will get an assessment for what you're going to be budgeting for FY 2025? And would the rate increases then be on the following year's cycle? I'm just trying to get a feeling for how it works with this committee when we need to step up.
And I see Ellen is on the phone or on the call here on the Teams meeting. So let me defer to her. I don't have the budget schedule, but she can provide the best input, I think, on that one.
Good morning, everyone. The budget schedule, and I happen to have it in front of me. Well, sort of. The department's recommended or requested budget is due into finance the middle towards the end of July, or excuse me, January. At which point we start to look at it as a comprehensive budget from the county overall perspective. Once we have the requested budget from the department, we then in finance begin to work with them and put together the rate book that would evaluate whether rate increases are necessary. That usually comes out in February is what I think, Jackson, but I might not have that date accurate, and I will get that for you. But those rate increases would go to the board for effective, if there were any, or would to be effective July 1st, 2024, which is the start of the fiscal year 2025 budget.
So those rate increases, don't those have to be voter approved, or how does, I mean, or is it approved internally? How does that work?
It goes to this committee, and this committee makes a recommendation. The Board of Supervisors approves that or not. It doesn't go to the voters. It is, the board has the authority to make that decision.
That's what I thought. I sort of misspoke. So my question is, how does that, so if it goes in the budget and it goes into the budget for approval by the Board of Supervisors, that is usually at the end of June. So
no, that's the final. I'm sorry, that's the final approval. The cycle is, we have the requested budgets from the departments in January. January 16th is when it is due to finance. We then put together a county administrator's recommended budget, which goes to the board the end of April. If we were to be recommending a rate increase, it would be going to the board in that March-April timeframe to be included in the county administrator's recommended budget. Then at the end of May, the board adopts a tentative budget, which is the ceiling on the county's expenditure limit, with a final adopted budget occurring several weeks later in June. So there's a process.
Okay, so that's what I was trying to get to. So it sounds like if we're going to recommend a rate increase, we are looking at that March-April timeline to identify what that would be. Okay.
And as soon as the requested budget from Jackson, we start with the workbook, the rate workbook.
Right, okay. So I guess on follow-up to that, Jackson, is there work that we need to be doing prior to your recommendation in January, which is, I'm assuming, being put together in the next month, in 6 weeks?
Well, of course, every meeting we have, there'll be an update financially to see how we're comparing to our current budget. And I can always make sure, because we're in the budget process, it's part of my update as we're, for instance, I said the Tucson electric power rates going up. I heard as much as $1 million impact to wastewater. I don't think it will be that high, but maybe at next month's meeting, I will have a hard number to tell you, what those upward pressures start defining some of those impacts as we're working on the budget. And so by February, hopefully you would be able to really take some actions, or to have some more detailed discussions, in preparation for goes to the board.
Okay, and there's no public hearing requirements for a rate increase?
Sorry, is there what requirement?
Are there any public hearing or public engagement?
Yes. Yeah, when you're impacting the rates, you got to have a public comment period.
Okay. So that has to fit in there also. Okay. Are there any other questions? It sounds like we should keep this on the agenda and through the rest of this year, as folded into the agenda. Any other comments or questions? All right. Okay. Yes. Thought I heard something. Nope. All right. Okay. I think I'm hearing my own self feedback through the room. All right, we'll move on to the number 2 of the discussion, committee discussion of future goals. And was this the item that you wanted to talk about with the ordinance? Is this the one we were going to look at the ordinance for?
Yes.
Or
Yeah, yes.
so, Jackson, were you planning to lead this, or I'm not in the room there, so I'm not sure how we were going to proceed.
I guess so. Here.
Or I can help, or
I can share it too.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and share it on the screen here.
So I believe this one came out of our discussions with regard to, what does this committee do? What is the purpose of this committee? What's the statutory requirement for this committee? And a couple months ago, we had a discussion about who we all were, and this was another portion of that, saying, what do we do as a group, just so that we're all on the same page. And it seems like a really good year to go over that, considering that we may have a major decision to make with regard to rates later in the year. And so what Jackson is, and you should have received this in the package as well, he's looking at he's putting up there, what they're putting up is the ordinance that talks about our work. So do you want to take it from there, Jackson, or somebody there?
I'll just run through the key points and, try and be as quick as I can, but, first, just to make sure everybody on this committee is aware, you're an advisory body. You're not like approving a budget or approving or denying something. You're just an advisory committee. And again, with the makeup of the group of 13 voting members, that's 2 per board member. Each board member has 2 appointees for 10, and then there's 3 at-large positions. One is from PAG. The other, help me out here. One is from
CWAC. That's me.
CWAC. Thank you. Third one is probably in here. I just did not get ahead of myself.
I guess Arizona Water Association.
Oh, and AZ Water. That's it. AZ Water, CWAC, and TAG. Those are the 3 at large. And all of those 13 positions are voting members. But again, it's an advisory committee for the wastewater department and focused on capital improvement program planning and rate structure formulation to county government. Annually review the proposed wastewater capital improvement program and recommend to the governing body an annual and 5-year capital program. Matt, did you want to jump in there? You're muted, Matt.
Thanks. Sorry, I was happy to let you carry on and add afterwards, but now that I've interrupted you, it's interesting in the years that we've been working on implementing this ordinance. I've always, and I think you kind of did the same thing, jump to the section where it says what our functions and purposes are. And I mean, that makes sense, right? But what I realized this time that I missed something by skipping over the whereas sections. And what struck me from that language was the amount of focus that the board in passing this ordinance put on cooperation between wastewater and Tucson Water. That, there's the second, third, and fourth whereas clauses all talk about the importance of that interaction and cooperative improvement and joint deliberations, things like that. And while we do that to some extent by sharing membership on this committee and CWAC, I just wonder if there's an opportunity for us in the future to do something that would help really enhance and strengthen the relationship between the two departments even more than we already have. So again, just it was a observation that struck me this time that I'd never really made before, because I always kind of focused on what the written functions and purposes are, and those functions and purposes don't really bring out that cooperative interaction very much between the two departments.
That's a great point, Matt. And before I comment, I'll ask Allison if she wanted to comment now.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Matt for pointing that out, and also to say that, the city of Tucson has decided that they're going to be looking at serving reclaimed water, well-treated water from Pima County wastewater. So the synergy between these two departments is going to become even more important. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Yeah, great points from both of you. And also John Camille, the director at Tucson Water, is a non-voting member of this committee, or when he can't make it, he sends a delegate or a designee in his place. And then of course Allison as a representative from CWAC. So we do have that link, but for Allison's comment of direct potable reuse or advanced treatment of wastewater in the future, that definitely could be something that we focus more on and enhance more the role of this committee in those discussions. So good point. And I did not mean to pass over the whereas, because all of that was very good. So thank you, Matt. All right, I'm going to continue going through the key functions, and I got to item C, I believe. Review and report to the governing body on the long-term 10-year capital needs of the department. Of course, utilizing staff of wastewater and other sources for information necessary for such review. And that's kind of, we've got that back on our radar and do that. But even within the county, our 10-year outlook is not as much focus as our 5-year. Of course, we do our 1-year planning in detail and a lot of 5-year outlook and discussion. And we do the 10-year to look further out, but I don't think we spend a lot of time on it. So that's really up to the committee if we want to look more at the 10-year or have further discussions. But again, I'll have to tell you that 10-year outlook is always, that crystal ball is a little bit cloudy in that further time frame. So that's up to you, but that's another key part of this committee. Item D is annually review the revenue requirements of the department and recommend to the governing body rate adjustments as required, which we just talked about here just a minute ago. Review and make recommendations on proposed state and federal legislation relating to wastewater reclamation, which we do at appropriate times, and we keep an eye on the proposed legislation that's down in Phoenix being discussed, and we do share that with this committee for discussion and any appropriate comments or actions, then we continue to do that. To consult with the governing body from time to time as may be required by the Board of Supervisors relative to wastewater reclamation system development needs. And I think we've done that in the past as well. So, item H, review and make recommendations on significant policies and regulations relating to wastewater reclamation. And then we got into, I already mentioned the membership of the 13 voting members, and let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, then there are some other sections that provide some detail, but I kind of wanted to cover the main focus and see if that generated any thoughts or discussion from the committee.
I'm raising my hand.
Okay,
If I'm yeah, I was curious because, you know, a lot of that language happened because the split between the wastewater and the county and the two government entities getting sort of priority on each water stream, right? So the wastewater versus the potable water system, and that is unusual in a big municipality. Often that one governing body will handle both. And so so that's one of the reasons for that, those original whereases and that really clear language that we're still going to be coordinating. I believe that's where that's generated from. And then, so I'm wondering if John Kmeek is on this committee, is there also a wastewater person, staff person, or yourself, Jackson, that goes to CWAC? I mean, how do you work the other way back?
Yeah, it's a two-way street, and in the past, I had been an active member on CWAC, but they've rescheduled to conflict with my schedule, something I can't change. And so I've designated Jim Doyle, who is in this room right now today. He comes here every month and he goes to CWAC every month and reports back to me. And you know, we have representation, just like today. John is not here. Beth, are you here representing John today? So those things happen and as schedules conflict, but I personally meet with John every month, and we also have staff meetings between Tucson Water and Pima County Wastewater also on a monthly basis. On occasion, we'll cancel a monthly meeting if there just aren't agenda items, but we stay in fairly close conversation, and I see that picking up even more with the direct potable reuse topic, you know, being approved by the city council, and definitely being a bigger part of our one water conversation and the water in the future. So I see that that's a great topic to push us back to more regular discussions and details of our businesses.
That was my next question, was whether you do, you know, staff meetings with each other to coordinate. And so that's great to know that's happening. So any other comments or thoughts about this, about our duties? Rob, I see your hand is raised.
Yeah, on section 1, item E, support and sponsor community programs and projects to provide information and education to the community regarding wastewater reclamation in Pima County. It's my opinion, we really don't do a lot of that. And maybe on an individual basis we do. When I had a functioning neighborhood association, I would keep people up to snuff of what's going on in the county and the wastewater department. And I'm also in an HOA, and I keep our HOA informed. But other than that, I really don't do a lot other than let it be known that I'm on the committee and ask people if they have any questions about what's going on in the county's wastewater department. Sometimes people actually ask me questions and I can answer them, but generally people are uninformed. And so that was something I thought that maybe we should all think about, either as a committee or as individuals, about how we can help educate the public about what's going on.
That's a great comment, Rob. And you know, like with the Sonoran Institute, the Living River document, you know, it's an outreach to the public. We have the annual newsletter that goes out, or the information Living River document. We have mailers to mostly to communities around or along the river. We have the Living River of Words, where we reach out to school kids for some poetry and introduce them to the Santa Cruz River and what we're doing. We also, as you all, or some of you may recall, was about a year ago. I lose track of time. That's my worst detail. My brain is doesn't work anymore. Okay, I publicly announced it, but my depth of when that happened, I think it was about a year ago that the county consolidated our community outreach group. We had a community relations and outreach group, and they were consolidated into the communications department as a whole. And so the comm department works with us in a number of events, like right now, yesterday and today, I believe it's 2-day event is construction career days over at the TDP ballpark, where we're one of many utilities and many construction industry firms that have a presentation, and they bus hundreds of school-age kids over there to introduce them to the different construction-related industry opportunities there are as they grow into young adults and move forward in life. And so we're showing them different stuff about wastewater. And then there's, other regular things like Earth Day and Cyclovia and many other things that we usually have a booth and stuff. But definitely, Rob, there's so many more ways that can happen. And we definitely need to include communications, because that's where some of the rubber meets the road now for our department. And seeing what this committee thinks in that regard would be great to see what recommendations and ideas we have for additional and improved outreach. I think that's great.
All right. Are there any comments from anybody regarding this? I think it was very useful to go over this. And it was sent out to everybody, so you should have a copy to look back at it in future. Any other thoughts before we move on? All right, we'll move on to the work plan, which you should have received also in your packet. The draft work plan. And I will just mention one thing that I didn't see the PAG 208 plan in here on a regular place. And I'm wondering if that shouldn't be part of the regular work plan to get an update from PAG or regarding the PAG 208 plan, or maybe any statewide 208 updates. I see 2 hands going up. So let's get those questions on the, get their comments as well. So Asia, you want to go ahead?
Thanks, Claire. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I had started to raise my hand on the previous item, but I think my comment was going to be kind of generally on the committee's work or on the.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Mm-hmm.
No, that's fine. It was like right at the end, as you were saying, should we move on? But I was thinking, it sounded like you said we should keep this. I don't know if it's this item or the previous item that would remain on the agenda. And I'm just thinking Jackson's also was sort of stressing that this committee needs to be prepared to look at the items, that might be driving up costs for the utility and what rates are going to look like. And I would just wanted to, I guess, comment that I think we probably need to continue the discussion and have a fuller discussion of everything we just talked about in the previous item. And that, maybe this work plan helps to do that. But as the subcommittee chair for the capital projects, right? I mean, I think that there may be some things we could do differently there to pull in, specifically some of the things that Matt brought up too about the intersection of Tucson water and reuse and things that are moving forward. Anyway, so I didn't have a particular suggestion. I just wanted to say that I do think I need to, think about that more to come up with that particular suggestion, right? And that hopefully there are other committee members doing that same thing. And that's all I wanted to say.
I think that's a really good point, that both the subcommittees need to be thinking about this stuff and how they can contribute more and what things should be done in subcommittee versus the entire group. And Matt, let me call on you. Maybe you were going to make a similar comment.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I was kind of triggered by your comment about the 208 plan.
Oh.
One of the thoughts that I had in looking at the work plan, and then also kind of following up on our objectives discussion, is that long-term planning component that, the 10-year lookout that Jackson said, we don't focus on as much as the 5-year program. But, when I was going over the minutes from the last meeting, I was reminded that the CWAC, and Allison had mentioned the One Water 2100 plan, and Jackson referred to it in his comments too. And I know that Pima County has a long-term plan. Wondering if maybe one of the months in our work plan we can dedicate to some long-term planning topics that might include all of those things. That there's a little bit of a synergy involved in talking about Pima County's long-term plan, Tucson Water's long-term plan, the state and PAG's planning process for the long term, and particularly the department's own 10-year capital needs. So just one thing that we might be able to add to one of the thinner months in the work plan would be a long-term planning topic.
I think that sounds really good. Jackson, do you have any comments on that? And how, when we have these ideas, how would you like to proceed? Would you like to take these ideas back and then look at it and rearrange things and come back with a new work plan? Or would you like to,
first things first, Claire, I think that's great. We'll definitely add the long-term planning, and I think the way Matt described it would cover Asia's comments and your own, and really just have that as a key one of our agenda items for an upcoming meeting. So all I would ask is if you have a preference for a month you'd like to do that, let me know. Otherwise, we would go back and adjust our topics and see, what it will take to pull all those different entities and information together and recommend a place for it. So we can go either way. We can insert that topic in the plan where we think it is appropriate, but if you have a preference, let us know and we'll see if we can't make that happen as well. So either way, I'm good.
So maybe what we could do is look through this work plan together right now and say, why these things should be at certain times, and where we see there's a light area where we might add things. Would that be a good idea? Do people like that idea? I know it would take a little bit of time, but I don't think too much. Does that sound good? Jackson, would you like that, or would you prefer we do that on our own and give you feedback? We could do it either way.
That's fine. I think if you want to just kind of cruise through it and just make a quick review on each month and decide if that sounds about right, or if you have comments, we'll take it back and adjust it accordingly.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll do that. But first, I'm going to.
Eric has his hand up.
Yeah, and I thought I'd call on Eric first.
Yeah, thank you. I was looking at our work plan, and to me, October seems like a great time to do it. You've come through the review process in August, and so now you have an idea of where you stand and how you're moving forward with various projects, the finances and all. And then in October, we can look at the long range outlook of how we're moving forward and to the end of the century, so to speak.
That sounds like a good month for that. It's obviously a lighter month. Well, let's start at the top. And then when we get there, we'll have a better idea. Does that sound okay to you, Eric? So, can we fold your comment
Yes.
into? Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to turn off my hand.
I know, it's constantly a problem, right? It is a little odd chairing from over here because I can't see Jackson nod. So I have to say, Jackson, what do you think? All right, so we're looking at January, and that's when we usually get our technical services and engineering update, and we do our 5-year plan, our review. So it's possible we would want to do that 5-year plan at a different time than the 10-year, or maybe it would be that's usually a pretty big item. Both of those are fairly big, and the budget expense. That meeting's pretty full, as I recall. Would you agree, Jackson? And
Yeah, it is a busy meeting, that one.
okay, so that's like setting the stage for everything, and it.
And it's in late January where the department will have submitted our budget to finance. And so
Right.
there could be some of that, next year budget discussion that I think will get quite detailed and involved, knowing this committee as I do.
Right. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, that we will have a summary of that budget. Or it'll be very top on your minds, I'm sure. Okay, so then we have the Living River report and the rate workbook review and the budget expense summary, which is, of course, every month. So do we think those are good in that spot? The Living River report, I don't know when it comes out usually, but.
I think we have the new one now, so I don't think we'll have another one now between then. So it's just going over the most recent one, and that one could get moved anywhere. So that's probably the wild card. But
Okay.
definitely February, as Ellen mentioned earlier, that's probably when the rate workbook should be available, and that would be the key part of the committee's discussion. And again, that's the heart of the financial immediate needs of the financial discussions, and that's probably going to take up the lion's share of the committee's time. So
Yeah, so I mean, if there are other items that we should add to that one, we could move the Living River report. So maybe we could leave that for your consideration. If there are other budget items that should be added, that would be pretty critical to have at that February meeting. Okay, then the county legislative agenda, that's always good to have. Is March late for that, or is that a good time?
Yeah, that's when we've had it before. So yeah, I'm reminded that is the time when it usually comes up for us. I think that's probably fine to leave it there.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it was earlier in the. It's pretty hard to tell what their legislative agenda is. Nothing's been narrowed down. That's always fascinating. And then we have the financial plan review. That seems good. And then in April, we'll do the financial plan review again and the budget request review. So is there anything in here that would be good to add? Is there room in that meeting? By then, things are a little clearer, right?
Yeah.
And some of those meetings have seemed a little light in the spring, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I would say, through April is probably the maximum, that's where this committee is going to have the most, January, February, March, and April, significant conversations on budget and financial topics and rates and all that stuff, and going through CIP and all those things. I think they're going to be pretty busy months, all of them, because that's where the focus will be.
Yeah.
But then it starts opening up for all these other topics, and that's where, we could evaluate, okay, when do we do the Living River? After that, let's leave that for some of the slower times, or that start veering off of the primarily financial needs.
My comment is if a rate increase is necessary and the committee would be hosting public meetings, so that would be busy time, March, April.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's a good point.
That's
You
one of
didn't-
the things.
But, you know, in the past, 7 years ago, when we've had a rate increase, or, when we've had the public meetings, this committee is in attendance and we usually set those up where, they're after hours. And again, it's a busy time. And again, I'm not saying we're going to have rate increases, but indications are there's going to be a lot of pressure on that discussion to really decide. And if we do, there'll be more for the committee to do in public meetings as well. So.
Well, I think it's pretty clear we're going to have robust discussions about it, even if we go one way or another. So, yes, those public hearings that will be an additional discussion, and there will be reports on those at our committee meetings. The findings from those meetings, public meetings. So that will make those busier times. So as far as the long range planning, it seems like October might be a good time because it would be before all this busy financial, very concentrated on the upcoming year that happens January through April. Okay, so moving to June, May and June, we have the performance indicators in May and the nominating committee. And that might be a good time. Those are not giant presentations. That might be a good time for Living River.
Yep.
Are there other things like for example, you mentioned the outreach that you're doing all through with community members, maybe that's another sort of softer item that could be moved in, a report on all the community efforts that are happening to under that one item that Rob pointed out. So maybe consider adding that. I see that Matt has raised his hand. Matt.
Yes, and that was another thing that I kind of had on my list after Jackson reminded us about the consolidation of the community relations staff. And I think it would be good to invite the county communications director or whoever that person is to come in and give a presentation to us on what they do for our department and kind of remind them that they got to work for us because we've got this important function and purpose on our ordinance that talks about public information and education, and now that they've got our people, they really ought to be demonstrating and to us how they're helping us and the department do that.
Okay, well, definitely that from May on, it does open up with more flexibility, and I agree. We'll put that long-term planning discussion. We'll move the Living River Sonoran Institute topic down in that time frame. The communications staff and outreach to the public, we'll put that as an agenda item in those later months where it's slowed down a bit. Also, thinking that, based on the discussion I heard, we'll include a DPR topic, which could involve Tucson Water being here, or, Allison representing them, or Tucson Water being here to talk about where they're headed or how that's going. And the department also, I've told you previously that we're looking at a similar opportunity up on Mount Lemmon, maybe for direct potable reuse. So that would be a standalone topic that we could just share with the committee as well. And then one that we've typically had in the past that's probably worthwhile doing because we do get new members, or it's good to get refreshed, and that's the open meeting law. And we could have the county attorney give a presentation on open meeting law. And I better make sure I attend.
Yeah, and that was my next suggestion. So we checked that one off. Thank you.
All right.
I wonder, I have a couple of thoughts. I wonder if in your personnel and key performance indicators, if there's somewhere to have a diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion about the department's perspective, the things you're doing on that topic.
You bet.
And then we individually have relationships or the lack thereof with our supervisors, but there's very little interaction between this committee and the supervisors. Is there, I seem to recall in the past that some of them had attended, or maybe that was in CWAC, the ward people had attended. I don't know if there's some way to facilitate that relationship between the committees, the committee members, and the supervisors, staff, or board. I don't know if that's outside the meeting structure, but I thought I'd mention that if you have any ideas.
Pre-COVID, we often would have some representation from the one or more of the districts in our open meeting, in attendance. But like, I'll pick on Kim, that's on the Teams meeting. She's here quite often representing one of the districts as well. And sometimes we see some other names pop up from time to time, but personally, I think that would be a great opportunity for you all that are appointed by a board member to suggest that, hey, you might want to have somebody else listen in too, and do like Kim does and join. Not only does she join our meeting, she does the Grease campaign with us too. I wasn't supposed to bring that up, but I think that's where that should happen, Claire.
Okay.
It's everybody's always invited, and some board members are able to make sure they're keeping a pulse of what's happening in wastewater. We're a big utility in the state and of significant importance in the community, but we're also kind of out of sight, out of mind, and that's good too. So, but this year, I think the board's engagement is very important, especially if the outcome of the budgeting exercise is for a rate increase, because that's a big deal, and it's an election year coming up next year too. So all those things, have to be managed appropriately. So I think you're spot on, but I think it would be a great thing for those of you appointed by a board member to get with them and share some of these things as you can, and see if they want to have more involvement than they do with just yourself on the committee.
Yeah, I mean, so how this interfaces with the work plan, I wonder if there should be, I know some of us have not successfully set up meetings with the person who appointed us, but if it was on the agenda for the work plan that we should report back about our discussions with our board member, maybe that would help us all sort of like focus to get in touch with them during 1 month of the year, and then we could come back and have that loop a little better. Just a thought. Armando, I see that you're on there. Raise your hand.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're muted.
You hit the mute somehow, Armando. It cut you off mid-sentence.
We didn't hear anything.
Okay, my supervisor went into power 3 years ago. There was a change in supervisors in my district, and I met with his staff one time early in his tenure, and then I met with the staff again pertaining to a planning and zoning issue that was coming up that was important to him. And that's the only time I've met with my supervisor staff. Not because I don't want to. We tried to schedule quarterly meetings, and it just doesn't work out for them, so to speak. I don't know how much more interaction we can do if they don't have time for us. Now, I have noticed when we were meeting all together that my supervisor would have a representative there sitting in the audience, usually in the last row. But the only thing that I can suggest is that we take it upon ourselves to be more proactive and not require an agenda item to get it done. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, my idea for the agenda item was just an opportunity for each of us to discuss, to share our interactions with our appointee and feedback we're getting, which would sort of give us impetus to say, hey, I have this agenda item. I'd like to meet with you before then. So it was really a catalyst. The thought was, would this be helpful for us to get meetings with our supervisors and their staff?
Yeah,
So it sort of speaks to the same thing you're saying, Armando. Rob?
Yeah, I think one of the ways to have a better chance of meeting with your supervisor staff is to go in with the other appointed member by that supervisor. Then you can both go in. We all have a little bit different ideas or takes on things, and I think it's a better discussion. Anne Marie and I have gone in together, and it was very helpful to everybody. So, and then I know it's harder for scheduling with two individuals, but I think that's helpful to the supervisor staff because they do have limited time.
Okay, that's a great suggestion. Well, this is probably a bigger discussion than we can finish today, but it was really good to get some feedback, and maybe we keep that on the radar. A little off topic from the work plan, but thank you for that discussion. Any other thoughts on work plan items that we'd like to see? I think we have really done some good work on thinking about this. Any other thoughts?
We'll take your feedback and come up with a new revised work plan based on some of these other topics and fit them in as we think is appropriate, and then hopefully get your approval maybe at the next meeting, or we can make one final tweak if need be. But I think we got some good guidance.
Thank you. That sounds great. Okay, I don't see any hands up, so I'm going to move. Thanks very much for that discussion. It's great to have that. We're going to move on to the financial subcommittee report, and we have Matt to provide that.
Yes, thank you. The financial subcommittee has not met during the past month, so there's no particular report to give, though I think everybody is tuned into the fact that we're going to have to make some arrangements for subcommittee meetings in the coming months. Typically, we've met January to consider the recommended budget, and February to kind of put the finishing touches on the subcommittee approval, such that it is to pass muster for the full committee and Board of Supervisors. So that'll be upcoming. I am happy to announce that based on outreach after last month's meeting, we have a full financial subcommittee now. Eric Solwald has volunteered, and as the only volunteer by acclamation, he got it. So thanks to Eric for stepping forward on that. Beyond that, look forward to further discussions about scheduling the next subcommittee meeting.
Thank you very much, Matt. Any questions for Matt? Nope. Moving on to the number 5, which is the CIP subcommittee report. Asia?
Similar to the Finance Committee subcommittee, we have not had. So nothing specific to report, but we will, you know, I think based on the work plan and everything else we've discussed, that the subcommittee members are aware we're going to need to get together in January and, you know, start looking at those items for the 5-year and the 10-year CIP and maybe even some additional things. So I am interested in hearing from the subcommittee members, you know, not necessarily today at the meeting. You feel free to email me if that's okay. Jeanette, maybe you can weigh in on that to let me know if you have any ideas or specific things you'd like to see at the CIP subcommittee. So that's, and I think, Jeanette, I'm going to ask you or ask you to help out with this too, but I think we are fully, we have a full membership in our subcommittee. Is that correct?
That's correct. I believe that's correct, Asia, but we will double check, but I believe you do.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you, Asia. Any questions for Asia? All right, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is the 2023-24 period 4 expense and revenue summary. Say, Santana.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'll share my screen and we'll definitely go over our period 4 expense and summary and revenue summary. Second here. Excellent. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Can you blow it
So
up a
for
little
period,
bit? Isai, can you make it a little bit larger?
what was that
I
for?
think everybody should have it in their packet, but it just might make it easier.
We just got it yesterday.
Oh, we just got it.
It'll,
So it's not in the packet. So that's better. Thank you.
Yeah, is that better? Excellent. Yeah, unfortunately, due to the time constraints that we had, we were not able to send out the package. Normally, we'll put it together around this period, but since we moved the RWRAC a week earlier, that's one of the reasons we did not able to send it earlier. But here's the information for period 4. For our total O&M expenses, we are projecting 97.93 million, giving us a negative variance of 1.1. What we have done to cover our negative variance, we have transferred over budget capacity from a CIP department. Our total O&M expenses, and including contrast, depreciation, and debt service, brings us to a negative variance of $244 and $784. We scroll down to our total revenue. We are projecting $198.5 million, giving us a positive of almost $4 million. Really good. So overall, we're doing pretty good. And like I said, we were able to cover that the negative variance with a transfer from CIP budget authority. Any questions right now?
Just, I'm sorry, Matt, real quick, just to explain, you know, with that compensation study, it went into effect on September 10th. And
Yes.
so the budget for this year obviously was already submitted quite a while ago and approved. And so the wage impact to our budget was approximately 1.2 million this fiscal year.
Correct.
And so we were able to take some of our, because we had a project in our capital that is delayed, we've moved capital finance money out of capital to cover the operation expense of the additional wages. So that's something that is keeping us whole there. But next year, I mentioned the full year impact will be a little over 1.5 million. So, you know, that's where, you know, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to pay for that long term. At any rate, that was a key issue. I just wanted to make sure you got it.
Mr. Matt, looks
Okay.
like you have a question.
Yeah, Matt?
Yes, thank you. So I was looking at the notes, and it looks like note number 3 that those higher interest rates, while it costs us more in some areas. It also seems to be benefiting us. So I'm gathering or assuming that we're earning interest on cash reserves that we've got.
Correct, sir.
And that's basically resulted in close to a $4 million increase in revenue for this year. Am I reading that right?
You are correct. The big bulk of the almost $4 million is coming from the higher interest rates and some other things, but the big bulk of it is.
Good. Well, I guess that's good news.
Correct.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right.
Any other
Well,
questions or comments on this item? Nope. Well, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate your presentation. We'll move on to item number 7, which is the Citizen Water Advisory Committee CWAC report, and Allison Jones.
Thank you, Claire. CWAC met on November 1st. John Kamik, the Tucson Water Director, spoke about a study session on October 17th. The mayor and council is looking at a small agricultural rate, and this will affect very few Tucson water users. There may be 10 meters where that would have an effect. They took a WIFA loan, Water Infrastructure Finance Authority loan to consent agenda. Mayor and council adopted the One Water Plan. Now we're going into the implementation phase. We got an update on the Colorado River. Basically, runoff is over. It stopped in early fall, late summer, and we are, as I said previously, going back into Tier 1 in 2024, but do not get complacent about that. Claire, may I share the screen? I wanted to share a few things from the conservation report. Can I do that?
Jeanette
Okay.
would be the one to enable that.
You should be able to do it. Just go up to your share button.
Okay, I think I have it. Can you guys see this? This is from the conservation is one element of Tucson Water. They have a department for this, and they gave a report on 2022, the last full calendar year. And these were some milestones, and I'll talk about just a few of these, the rebate policies, and development of new conservation policies to maximize water conservation. If you're a Tucson Water customer, you pay 10 cents per CCF in your monthly bill that goes to conservation measures. About 28% of that is rebate programs, which we'll talk about in a second. Tucson has been remarkably resilient when it comes to water usage per capita. You can see here that in 2000, the total potable GPCD was 165 gallons per day. It's now about 120 gallons per day, and it's hovered in that range since about 2015. And the reason the groundwater demand really is hardening, and you're seeing it pretty much flattening out here. Tucson Water does water audits for customers who request it, and they did 762 audits in 2022, and they identified about 5.8 million gallons of excess usage. I'm a hydrogeologist, so that comes out to about 18 acre feet, which in the whole scheme of things is not a huge part of our 100,000 acre feet water usage per year, but we have to protect every drop that we have. And the big takeaway from this is irrigation systems and toilet leaks are the bad actors in 75% of cases. So keep that in mind. And then Tucson Water has all these incentives right now. For single family, you can get toilet rebates, clothes washer rebates, gray water rebates, water harvesting rebates, all of these. If you're in a multifamily situation, you can get these kind of rebates, and commercial properties can get toilet, urinal, and customized rebates. I wanted to bring you to show you this. Okay, here we go. This I found fascinating. This is the incentive programs for the different kinds of rebates on costs per acre foot of savings. And CWAC had asked for this information a long time ago, because you can see that really rainwater harvesting is pretty expensive for the amount of water that you save. The biggest bangs for the buck are single family high efficiency toilets in general. So if you don't have a high efficiency toilet, please get one. And that's really all I had to share on this, but conservation is an important part of the Tucson Water infrastructure, and that was their annual report, which was fascinating. I'll take questions if you have some, but I hope I can answer them.
Does anybody have any questions? That is pretty fascinating about rainwater harvesting, although I do think it is probably the highest profile conservation measure. It sort of is an identity builder around conservation. Would you agree? I don't know.
It is, but at the same time, if you don't harvest your rainwater, does that mean you're losing it? It could fall right off your roof and onto your plants, in which case, no harm done. And so rainwater harvesting is not, I won't say controversial, but it's definitely not the panacea for conservation. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Any other comments? We have one comment by Rob.
Rob, yeah.
Yeah, enough rainwater falls on the city of Tucson in an average year to, if we were to use all of that, we would have enough water to support the city. So rainwater harvesting is very important. And one of the more important things about rainwater harvesting is that it helps slow down water so that it actually will infiltrate eventually into our aquifer instead of going off north.
That's true. It'll never happen that we use all of the water that falls on Tucson, however, because we need water for nature, and so that's important too. There's a lot of desert here, and plants rely on that rainwater. So you're right, though. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Okay, we're moving on. Thank you very much, Allison. I appreciate that. I always enjoy your reports. Future agenda items, item G. Anything that we want to bring? I think we've had quite an extensive conversation about this already.
Hey, Clarence Jackson, I did think of one other, because Allison showed her slides, the county's SAPCO effort and climate action activities. I'm going to add that to your, work plan as well, because there's a number of cool things that Wastewater's doing that I think are worth noting. So we'll add something like that as well.
For all gathering week, it's nice to get a robust meeting with lots to think about. It's helpful for us. So thank you for thinking of those things. Any other future agenda items? Hearing none, I'll move to item H, call to the audience. Oh, I see Kim. Yes.
I figured since Jackson called me out, I would say a couple of things. Number one, I love you guys. I love what you do. Rex Supervisor Scott calls me your biggest fan, okay? Because I really do appreciate, and it is underappreciated the 30 million gallons of stuff that come through the system that that people don't realize gets processed and is drinkable. Anyway, that's my little thing. I do talk to Scott also often after the meetings if I have any questions, that kind of thing. And he usually initiates those calls. But I think we've made a little bit more of a priority, but definitely when we get closer to the rate increases, I thought I had my camera on, sorry. When we get closer to the rate increases, the Board of Supervisors are going to want to know for sure, whether that's through inviting them to a meeting to discuss it individually, which will take, 5 meetings. So that might not work, but or if Jackson meets individually with each supervisor. Anyway, I think it is important. I think they will care because their constituents are going to care, right? Or our constituents are going to care. So that's my 2 cents. I'll stop talking now. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. That's great. Any other calls? Any other audience members who would like to say something to us? Okay, that item over. I will move to item I, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting's done. Thank you so much. November meeting. Ta-da!
Thanksgiving.
Yes, have a great Thanksgiving. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Great job, Claire.
Oh, thanks. Good to see you all.